Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Feeding Curiosity. I'm your host, Eric Wenzel, as always. Feeding Curiosity is, and always has been, a podcast about exploring the world of humans. How do we live better? What do we are curious about, obviously, but also how do we learn from each other? And in some of those places, it's going to be stories that suck. But we come back from them changed immeasurably, and you see the world incredibly differently. My guest today, Gina Iaffaldano, I think exemplifies what that is, or what life can throw at you and it changes you forever. So, without foreshadowing too heavily, Gina is a legal operations professional, writer, and an everyday athlete. She has recently relocated back to the Chicagoland area. She is currently working on her first book, Little Gifts, which covers a large part of her experience with overcoming Guillain-Barré syndrome, a rare autoimmune syndrome that causes her body to be neurologically paralyzed. Gina is 2 years in remission and is in training for her second Spartan competition post-recovery. And that is why we had this conversation. We've known each other for probably 10 years or so through high school and college era, but never really had friends. But through the power of social media, we kept in contact, and slowly but surely, I saw her story unfold and decided to reach out because I thought she would be able to have a very interesting conversation with me about her experiences surviving Guillain-Barré. And that's where we spend most of this conversation, is talking about how did she go from normal life to the diagnosis and then recovering from that diagnosis. And it's an incredible story. And to hear how she's, rethought her life, broken up all her habits, and just the resiliency, I guess, to keep pushing and to say, no, I will get better, I think is something that we can all take away from. And I'm really excited she's taking the time to write a book about this experience. And I think at the very end of all of this, we barely scratched the surface about what we could have even talked about here. And so I'm not going to preamble anymore, but I want to give as much time to Gina. And so with that, everyone, please enjoy this conversation with Gina Iaffaldano. Alrighty, Gina, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for being here. I know we've talked a bit before this and stuff like that, but it feels like a long time coming, and just hearing how excited you are to be here, it's awesome to just be able to talk to people and reconnect. I mean, realistically reconnect, because we've known each other for so long, really.
Yeah, for a very long time. I'm excited to be here too.
And so with that, just give people a little bit of who are you? What do you do? And I think we have some pretty big things to talk about, but I like to start there. So let people introduce yourself.
I'm Gina Iaffaldano. I grew up in the same place I think you did. Did you grow up in Schaumburg?
Yeah, okay. Northwest suburbs of Chicago, for people who are not from this area.
So I went to school all throughout here up until college, and I ended up moving across the country out west. And then I grew my legal career out there. And then, let's see, it's weird talking about yourself. But
I get it.
I stayed out west for a long time, and then I got really ill. I came down with Guillain-Barré syndrome, and that brought me actually right back home.
Yeah, and that's really where we want to spend most of the time today. I mean, it's one of those stories that I remember when I saw, every so often there'd be updates or photos of what had happened, and I was just like, that's crazy, because at one point it's like you see someone and they're moving around doing normal things, and the next thing you know, their life is turned sideways. And just for anyone listening, for this particular neurological condition, is there any warning signs? Can you predict it, or is it just it happens and you just have to deal with it?
Yeah, so that's what's so shocking about it. I was a very healthy 27-year-old. I mean, not very healthy. I was active. I mean, the last 10 years, I was working out at least 5 to 6 days a week. I was, I was getting yoga certified at the time. And so arguably I was in one of the best shapes I could have been in. And I didn't have much warning signs. I was exercising the week prior, and I felt a lot of weakness in my legs.
Hmm.
And I remember talking to my roommate at the time, my partner, and I was like, I don't feel right. Something, I mean, energetically, I don't feel like feel very off, very lethargic. And it didn't go from there until probably the day that I drove myself to the hospital. I woke up with tingling in my hands and feet.
Hmm.
And I remember getting out of bed, and I had tile, and I couldn't really feel the tile. And I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. And I went, yeah, I was like, that's
Wow.
kind of weird. I'm like, okay, so I'm like, something's off, you know. And I was doing yoga like pretty consistently, and I had to go to yoga that day because I was getting certified. And I was like, I must have twitched a nerve, or I must have pinched something in my back. And
Mm.
so I went to go make coffee like I normally do. I remember feeling the burner and not being able to feel like the heat. I was like, okay, this is weird.
You're like,
And
a lot of
so,
these coincidences are just starting to like add up.
yeah,
Hey, this
yeah,
is
but I mean, natural to everybody, right? I underplayed what I was going through. I was like, nope, I'm fine. Everything's fine.
right.
And my guy was like, you know, if you don't call the doctor, he's like, I'm gonna like make you go. You have to go. And so I called the doctor. It's like, hey, I'm feeling these symptoms. Like, this was a Friday. Should I come in now? Should I go to the hospital? They're like, no, well, you know, we could see you on Wednesday. We'll make an appointment for Wednesday. And it kind of progressively got worse that day. And my roommate was like, you need a second opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And so out of all doctors, I actually I called my gynecologist because it's like the only thing that I changed. And she said, when I called them and told them the symptoms, they're like, nope, that's not normal. You need to drive yourself to the emergency room right now. And I was
Wow.
like, oh, okay. So I drove myself to the emergency room. And since it was a Friday, I called my boss, and I was like, we were working fully remote since this was in um, April 2nd, 2021. So we were in the thick of the pandemic. And
Oh,
I
wow. I didn't even think about that.
yeah,
Holy.
I called my boss and said, hey, I'm just gonna go get checked out really quick. And I'll log back on. I'll finish what I have to do. You don't have to, because we were also in these quarterly reports that I had to get out right away
Mhm.
before the weekend. And I was like, I promise, I'm just getting checked out. So I went into the hospital, and it kind of gets fuzzy from here. I was actually thinking about this before you know, when we were preparing for the podcast, that I was on a lot of drugs that they put
Yeah.
me on as soon as I got in there because I started feeling pain.
Oh,
But
weird. Yeah.
yeah, they said, okay, well, we're gonna do an MRI. And then when they did the MRI, they said, okay, we're gonna keep you overnight.
Hmm.
And I was like, what? You're gonna keep me overnight? Like I can't be kept overnight. I got things to do.
You're like, I got a
And
job to go do.
yeah. And he's like, well, you know, we could have you do these tests out and come back, but really this is a one-stop shop. We want to get to the bottom of it before we release you. So it's
Hmm.
like, okay, what other tests do you have to do for me? And she said a spinal tap. And I was
Oh,
like,
boy.
that's jumping, you know, like, you know, you're just doing some tests from MRI to, okay, you're doing some, you know, you're getting some visuals on what's happening, but spinal tap is pretty serious. And I was like,
Mhm.
what do you guys think this is? And I was actually surprised that they already had like two theories of what it could be just based on my symptoms in the MRI alone. But she
Wow.
said, you know, we're thinking it's either MS or GBS.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, well, I know MS doesn't sound good, but what is GBS? I don't know
Mhm.
what that is. And I didn't want to look it up. So I was like, I'll just count on the
Nat
doctors, you know, to tell me what it is. And so they quickly, after the spinal tap, they had ruled out MS, and they were still,
Hmm.
they started to evaluate me for GBS. And from that point on, I think within 24 hours, 24 to 48 hours, I became paralyzed from the face down.
Oh.
Yeah. And it was kind of humorous at that time too, because they put me on so much morphine that
Mm.
when I first lost function of my legs, I was blaming the nurses for overdosing me. Like,
Like, you guys gave me too much and now I can't feel my feet.
Seriously, I was in this, I was in the ICU, or I was in the ER actually, and
Mhm.
there was a bathroom that was outside of the room, and I went, I'd go, back and forth, and then when I started, the thing about GBS is it goes from your feet upwards,
Mm.
and the paralysis kind of grows from there on. And so it started in my actual feet and legs. And I was walking and I collapsed in the hallway, and this nurse starts running to me and it's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Oh, you guys gave me too much morphine. I can't walk." And poor guy's like, "I'm not going to be the one to tell this girl that she's probably not going to walk for a while, if ever."
Right.
So yeah. So to answer your question, uh, there wasn't many signs other than the fact that I had this tingling in my hands and feet. And within 24 to 48 hours, I was fully paralyzed.
Yeah. I mean, that's crazy to go from, just your normal day to all of a sudden life is very different. I mean, even at this point, you don't even know what this means, right? Like, you can't walk, but you're like, I'm sure, or rather, instead of projecting, was it like, oh, I'll be here maybe a couple days and then I'll go back to my normal life?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I actually thought they could get, I was like, okay, they just got to give me, I was like, all right, I guess I'll just wait till the doctors can put some, well, another thing they talked about was the treatment methods for something like this, for an autoimmune disease that's attacking your peripheral nervous system, is they were like, okay, well, we could put you on IVIG, and essentially that's just taking other people's antibodies and putting it in your system so that you could fight off this infection
Mm.
and hopefully prevent paralysis from going any further. And I was like, okay, let's go ahead and do that. And yeah, well, I already put in the script for it. We're going to get you on it they got me on it, I think within like 8 hours.
Wow, that's really
Um,
fast. That's crazy.
well, because if you don't, then I think the alternative is pretty grim.
I see. So they basically have to just move as fast as they possibly can.
As because they're trying to prevent it from going to they want to prevent it from going to your throat, like your
Okay.
so you
Yeah,
don't
because
you
because it's attacking your nervous system. It would be, or your nervous system is attacking itself. I guess in your if you lose sensation in your throat, you stop breathing. Right.
yeah. hmm So then you have to be put on a ventilator, which I was about like a hair. Like that that story is pretty wild in itself. We could probably make
Hmm.
a podcast just on me needing to self advocate to not be put on a ventilator.
Really?
Yeah. And so because the IVIG actually didn't work,
Oh
and
wow.
they, lovely, lovely doctor. I swore that I remember all the names at people at Chandler Regional, and I don't because I was on so much morphine. But if anybody from that hospital is, or Air Barrows is listening to this, I am so indebted to you and thankful for you. But they didn't have the other, so it was IVIG that they put me on, but the life-saving treatment that I actually received was plasmapheresis, which
Hmm.
is a full blood transfusion. They took all my blood out of my body and put new blood in. So if you donate blood, thank you
Wow.
very much. You have saved my life.
That's crazy. So it's like dialysis, but like even more intense.
Yeah.
Wow. And then how long after that, or from the first treatment to the plasmapheresis?
Oh, very quickly. So when the IVIG clearly wasn't stopping, I think they got nervous too because the paralysis hit my face.
Mm.
And normally, like it goes here, but I was getting it. I think I had it all over. I couldn't lift my hands. I couldn't even wiggle my fingers, and
Mhm.
my face had zero expression on it. I mean,
Wow.
I was a very expressive person. I still actually have paralysis in my face, but not many people can tell, especially if you didn't know me beforehand. But even then, my face had zero expression on it. So I think when they saw that, they were like, okay, we have to, if the IVIG isn't improving at all, we're going to move her to a different hospital so that she could get the life saving treatment. And so we had that conversation, I think, within another 24 hours. And I got moved to Barrows, which is like the number one neurological center, I think, in the world. And
Wow.
that's where they had plasmapheresis. I was in, let's see, Actually, no, it would have been April 2nd. I think I got plasmapheresis on be April 17th, maybe.
Hmm.
So, but I was in like ICU for about 24 days, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to make sure that the spread of the symptoms are contained enough so that, because I'm assuming once you're stabilized, then that's when the rehab can start. But up until that point, it's very unclear because they have no. There's like, it sounds like to me there's really not a clear progression of like where the peak is. It's more of like, let's hope it doesn't, get to these critical spots, and then once we pass those marks, then we're good. But it's not like there's a clear timeline for this kind of, because it sounds insanely fast.
It's so fast. And I think it also can. So they're actually doing a case study on me if it's not already complete. I know it takes a while, but it didn't present like traditional Guillain-Barré. And so
Oh, really?
they didn't actually, I never got diagnosed. Like up until a week before I actually took my first steps, the head neurologist, he was like on a trip abroad. He came
Mm.
back, and after his review, he came into my room, and he's like, these tests don't really, the markers aren't showing Guillain-Barré for me. I actually think it's something else. And actually, I can't even remember what he thought it was, but it was a different neurological disorder that was actually quite permanent. So he ended up telling me in my room that day that I'd likely never walk again.
Wow.
And so he was like, yeah, I'd like to get an he was a nerve conduction study. He wanted to get a nerve conduction study done to see what my response rate was. So if you look at your nerve endings, if you look at them like as if they are a piece of like wire copper, you know how it has that sheath on it?
Yep.
They wanted to determine if the damage was just to the sheath or if it actually reached the copper, which would cause permanent damage. And so the only way to do that is like a nerve conduction study where they put needles in you. And so after he did that, and I did very well on that test. I think the only permanent damage that really showed that hit the copper was like my face. And
really? Wow.
some of my legs. Yeah. And so he was like, actually, all right, I guess, it might be Guillain-Barré syndrome. And we'll see where we can go from there. But
Wow.
yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, it's just such a crazy like syndrome to like it's like hard for me to like even put into words because it's just something that seems so, it's like so minor, right? Like it's not like a virus or something, but it's just like your nerves are being attacked, and it's like because you can't see any of this damage going on it's outside of what you say from sensation standpoint, and it just this total like shift. And I'm sure, did they, like, outside of the doctor who thought it was something worse, where they said you're probably not going to walk again, what was that recovery process to like regaining function? Because it sounds like it's almost like similar to that, like people who break their back or lose functionality of their legs and they have to relearn it. Sounds similar to that, but that's just me projecting.
Yes, it's very similar. Very long process, and I feel extremely fortunate because there's a lot of people with Guillain-Barré syndrome that don't walk for, they're still struggling on year 5 or and onward.
Wow.
And so I feel very fortunate where I'm at today. But with that said, that process wasn't an easy process. I will say there's people that obviously in my wheelhouse or in my circle that when they saw everything that was going on, they looked at it from a place of devastation. Like this is devastating. You must be in depressing state of mind. That wasn't the case for me. Out of the 100+ days that I was in the hospital, I only had 7 mental bad days. And as a result, I think it played into my recovery quite a bit. And so I progressed quicker than I think arguably most people with Guillain-Barré syndrome did. And I had to relearn how to do everything. I had no function in my hands, I think. So when I was in the hospital, one of those bad mental days was when one of the doctors, I was trying to just evaluate sort of what my future looked like based on where I was at. And I remember talking to her and I said, okay, so I work a legal career. I type, I use my hands. What does that look like if I can't use my hands anymore? And she's like, oh, okay, well, you wear this device around your head and you could, move like that. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. This is kind of serious.
Hmm.
Like this is gonna change or alter my life significantly. I may not snowboard again. I may not walk again. I may not enjoy these things that really bring me a lot of joy. And so that was I think that was mental bad day number 3.
So, I mean, there's really two directions, and I think we'll explore both of them. But the first one that comes to mind is it sounds like when you're confronted with something bad, right? Like you losing the functionality of your hands, and it fundamentally changes how you express yourself in the world. You end up like snowballing that into other things you might not be able to do that you enjoy, right? So it's like a dog pile effect of, oh, I can't do this, so because I can't do this, I can't go. And then you just keep chaining that down, and it just kind of creates this really spiral of, I'm not going to be able to do things I love anymore. And so with that, how did you keep your spirits high where you didn't end up falling into those traps?
Yeah, because when the reality sunk in, that could have been really easy to hang on to. But I will say a lot of what I like to talk about is sort of what I was doing beforehand, the work that I was doing before the catastrophe or the illness. And I was a longtime meditator of 10 years plus. I'm not as consistent as I'd like to be, but I always sort of believed in your physical fitness matching your mental fitness, where when you're training your body, it's more than just that. It's training in your mind and doing things like visualization and just doing the work to be able to handle extreme amounts of stress. And so when I got into that, I feel like when I came down with the illness, I did have to shift my paradigm into, this is larger than anything I've ever dealt with. Am I going to face it with strength, or am I going to give in and let it fully wreck my mental state? And so I did have really good people around me. I was very fortunate. At the time, I had my cousin fly in right away. She was right there by my side. I had a really incredible support system. My mom took a leave of absence from work, and she caretaked. Yeah, she flew out and lived in a state. She's never lived outside of Illinois before. She had to move her whole self to a whole different state and be with me in the hospital every day. And so I had incredible people. And I also, another really amazing part of this story, probably one of the biggest parts of this story, is that I had gone on a date like a month prior, a first date. And that guy, Vince, stuck with me through my whole illness. And so I had really good people in my wheelhouse to keep my spirits high. I had excellent support, and everything, all the work that I was doing beforehand that played into my recovery process.
Yeah, I think the idea of having people around you to support you and just be there, I think can't be understated in this situation. And not to mention just like the meditation side of things. It always brings you back to this quote from it's often cited by Viktor Frankl, but I believe it's a Nietzsche quote. But it's the ability to have space between the stimulus and the response. And you can really, I think, in some sense, you're exemplifying that to a whole different level, because when the reality is something so like drastic or bleak, it's easy to just be like, well, this is my life now, and you can just, sink into whatever that means to you. And I mean, we're all human, and it's easy for us to look at everything in the negative way or the worst possible way. And I remember even for me when I would see your updates either on Facebook or Instagram every so often of like just progress, and I would just like, this is crazy. Like it's because like, I think you were putting days at the time too of like how many days of recovery and stuff. And I was like, it just seems so crazy. Like, I think maybe part of it too, what made it stood out was because of the fact it was the pandemic, right? So you really didn't have a lot of, um, like, there wasn't a lot going on that like signified the passage of time. At least it's not for me, because like every day you're just working from home and you just, um,
Right.
you just kind of somehow go through it very groundhoggy after a while.
No, it's true. And actually, I have a mentor that she went through Guillain-Barré syndrome in her 50s,
Oh
and I
wow!
also had uh I had a strong therapy group that was composed of a lot of young people that were going through uh gunshot wounds that caused them to not walk again. They had they had gone through, one gal, she had gotten in a car accident and she also had a brain tumor. So she had to relearn how to walk again twice. And
Wow!
so I was in this therapy group for a few months, and I remember, saying, how am I going to relate to these people?
Hmm.
Ha- I'm not, these people are potentially never going to walk again. I'm doing pretty well. We're not the same. And it's interesting to see how much people can connect on trauma, just a
Hmm.
trauma alone, not just the type of trauma or illness, but what kind of bonding things that we have in a shared common interest. So for instance, the day counting, like you suggested, that was something we all did. We took it one day at a time. So everybody was calculating the days like, okay, it's day 15, it's day 20, it's day 40. I remember, I stood for the first time on day 40,
Hmm.
and I, I called it the miracle week because usually it takes people from like the moment they stand up months to take the first step, or weeks, depending. And I stood up on a Monday and I took my first steps by Friday. And
Wow!
then it went, it was, that's why it was so important to count the days, is to see what the work you were putting in, what it brought forth the next day. And you could see it on a micro granular level, like you never could in any other situation in life. And
Yeah.
so my biggest quote that I did was, and I painted it on a tile for the hospital, was, the work you put in today brings a little gift tomorrow. Because every day I'd wake up and I'd tell the people around me, guess what little gift I received? And it would be like, oh, I could wiggle my finger, or I could brush my teeth. It was like the most granular level of success.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's the it turns these things that you take for granted, right? Like the idea of, I remember this quote actually. It's one of the things we would talk about for like tapping into the present for people who are busy all the time or trying to just, relax or connect a little bit better. And it's one of the things they always say was be where your feet are. And it's like if you want to like snap into the present right now, try to wiggle your toes. Like like how often once you put your shoes on, do you even think about your feet outside of just, getting from point A to point B? Um, and with just hearing that, it kind of reminds me of that, but it's like ramped up to 11 or really like 1,000. But
Yeah. I can tell you the day I wiggled my feet. I can absolutely tell you the way, because I took a video of it. I
that's
mean, it
awesome.
was like, oh my gosh, there's a
Wh-
toe.
Actually, what day was that? That'd be interesting to say because if you stood on day 40.
That must have been, I think that, okay. So I wiggled my hand on day 20. It must have been day 20, because I got plasmapheresis on April 17th. And that, no, it was April 17th, because I got the plasmapheresis. And the one thing I could determine that it was working was that I could wiggle my fingers just
Mm.
this tad bit. And oh my gosh, that was like, it felt like the happiest day of my life. It felt like that. I was like, oh my God, there is a tunnel and there is light.
I mean,
Yeah. So it must have been day 20 that I wiggled my hands, my feet, probably in the 30 range,
okay. So
or
you're kind
20,
of,
30 range.
yeah, you're just kind of slowly but surely regaining certain little bit of sensation here and there.
Yeah.
Um, and is a lot of this just like exposure, just like challenging you to try and move? Just I'm just asking as someone who has no idea what it's like for this recovery process.
Yeah. Uh, so do you mean like what sort of things they got me doing to be able to move?
Yeah, like effectively, like what are the exercises to help
Well,
someone
so
retrain their nervous system?
the a lot of it was just sort of your everyday. Like I was eating. Oh god, it was pretty bad. I was eating pureed food for so long. That was
Yeah.
like the very grueling part. Is that I didn't. Yeah, there was no food that I could eat because I couldn't
Hmm.
use my. I couldn't talk at all. My lips were frozen, or not frozen, paralyzed, and so I had people feeding me, and I just I wanted to feed myself so bad, and so me regaining like the feeling in my hands was really important to me. And so I would start by just really visualizing sending movement to my hands. Like it's weird to say, and you don't think about, oh, I'm going to get up and go walk. Your brain just does it. But when your
Hmm.
brain is sending signals to walk and it's not working, it really throws you for a loop. So I still had to do that, sending signals to my body parts to move, even though they weren't working. And I I had the first PT appointment was getting me to stand up in bed, which was the most pain I've ever felt in my entire life.
Wow.
They had said that I think Guillain-Barré pain, like nerve damage or nerve pain like that, is like 10 times that of pregnancy or childbirth. And so
Huh.
when they stood me up, it was just my whole body was on fire,
Wow.
and all I wanted was to not move. Even though I wanted to move, all I wanted to do in that moment was to not move. And so they stood me up in bed, and it was to see how long I could stand up straight
Okay.
and just endure the pain. And then from there, it was, me putting my hands on a table and trying to push something forward.
Hmm.
So like very granular movements. And then when I got into outpatient therapy, I had the best support staff there. I had this CNA Svetlana. She's very, very stern, strong, and impactful woman. And she did not put up with any bullshit from me. So I'm laying in bed. I'm like, Svetlana, I have to get up. And she goes, okay, get up. I'm like, cool. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm paralyzed. I can't. She's like, no, you can. I'm like, no, I can't. I can't move. And she's like, yes, you can. And she like took my hand and she pushed it into this button to get my bed up. And she's like, you can't think that. You can try first and then ask me for help. But don't not try and ask me for help kind of thing. And so that mentality of me doing the work and having the wanting to do it, little by little I started to pick up and have some movement.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really telling when you have someone like that who's around. Because I think it would be easy for someone who gets into a job who's a nurse, right? Clearly, they care about taking care of people, right? Like that's the baseline. If you don't want to do that, then you should not be a nurse. But I think there's a point too where to some of these things, it's like you have to light the fire for someone in some sense. It's like you can't um you can't hope to just be there all the time to catch someone. Like you have to be there as like thinking from the nurse's perspective, like you're just there to catch someone when they fall, right? And I think the same is true for even like the family members who are around who are supporting that person. It's like they just have to trust that, like in your situation, you're doing everything you can to progress. And it's just like they're there to make sure that, okay, when the fire inside of you starts going down a little bit, they throw a couple extra logs on there, right? And I think it's one of those things that people don't talk about because maybe this is just some of the symptoms of our time where life is easy for a lot of people, or they make something bigger out of smaller things, right?
Yeah. And actually, you know, getting into, so when I left and got into outpatient, they had this big board and they said, what are your goals for leaving here? Outpatient, I think, is like between 4 and maybe 8 weeks max. That's what insurance will allow for us. Like, okay, I went in there completely flat, not able to move, and I had this lady come in and say, "All right, what do you want your goals to be?" And I said, "I want to walk out of here." And she's like, "Oh, okay." What, well, no, that's an ambitious goal. How about we start small, just so we can kind of gauge. I'm like, okay, I want to smile again. I want my smile. And she goes, "Ooh, okay." And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I just want to walk and I want to smile. And like, I'm not,
like these
those
are
my
not
goals.
big
That's what I'm
acts.
putting on there. That's what this is what I'm going to do, and fortunately enough, even though that I had come to that reaction in outpatient therapy, that's exactly what I did. I walked and I smiled out of there.
I mean, this is a lot about the type of person you are. When you walk into the room and the nurse who's like, "What are your goals?" and they're like, "Wait, hold on, let's roll this back a little bit."
Yeah, yeah, she was doubtful. She was a doubtful nurse.
Totally different than Svetlana, unless that was the same person, which it would be hilarious.
No, not the same person. There's lots of different personalities that were absolutely glorious and wonderful. Lots of. Oh, Svetlana has a lot of stories. I hope that she ends up listening to this because there are I like to say that I was your whole perspective on life changes after a long hospital stay.
Mhm.
But I mean, I remember before I got in the hospital, I would go into restaurant to change, and I'd be very modest, and I would. I mean, now if you were to ask me, like going into a gym or something to change, I could probably walk out of there naked. Like you lose all sense of humility because of just you're in a hospital. There's so much everything going on, but it was an interesting time.
I can imagine. Just as you're, like toward the end of your stay, as you're, regaining functionality, what kind of stuck with you, like as you were kind of like, I mean, not to say that surviving is really the right word, but in some sense, that's the only word that seems right. But like as you're like going to re-enter, whatever normal life was going to be like for you, like what did you learn either about yourself or just, the human condition?
Yeah. Whew. When you have the highest level of gratitude on a minuscule level, where you're appreciating the most minute things, that gratitude doesn't go away. And it carries with you. I mean, I may lose it sometimes in my day-to-day life now. I'm not the most positive all the time. And it's not to say I think everything shines in rainbows, but going through something like that, there's not much that could sway me anymore. I'm not scared of much. Not even death. I'm not scared of death. I'm not scared of failure. I'm not scared of losing everything, because I know that my willpower and what I built inside that hospital and even before it could carry me through anything. And I'd say I don't sweat the small stuff. There's really not much that I worry about, that if it's it's just going through a very life altering illness will change your mindset into that's not a big deal.
Yeah. Do you think it's in some sense like a gift to go through it so young? Like it because you have that like
We
thing you don't think about, like, or not that you don't think about, but it's like to some I hear this all the time with people who are like, when you're in your 20s or your early 30s, you think you're bulletproof, right? And then something happens where you try to lift a weight, you throw out your back and you're fucked up for, maybe not
we
something like yours where you can't walk, but
uh,
you realize like, oh my God, time's passing and this thing we call life is not something that's always going to remain easy to do, right?
um um I think so. Well, I'll start by saying my mentor and I used to say we don't wish this on everybody because it's incredibly challenging, and it's hard to say that people can come through it, either alive or not damaged. Uh, but we also wish it on everybody because of the things that come from it. Where uh, the amount of things that I learned in that experience, the amount of wisdom that I was able to gain, and the perspective and the people that I've now started to cultivate in my life, the meaningfulness, the joy that has stuck with me, the gratitude, the love that I've created based on an incredible foundation. Those are all the things that if I were to have a kid one day, I would want to box up and give to them. And
Mhm.
I got it in one fall swoop challenge.
And then you said it was like just over 100 days of being in the hospital, like this supercharged,
Yeah.
really like chapter of
Yeah.
your life. Like, this
Mhm.
is something most people aren't. It takes a lot of effort, and I mean, a lot of people don't even find, this sort of meaning from the difficult things, right? Like I always think about this is that life is going to throw you either speed bumps or curveballs or whatever, euphemism you want to use, but it's your job to be prepared, however prepared looks like to you, to weather those storms. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't either have the time or the ability to learn how to weather those storms. Um, and just hearing from like like how you're talking and your voice changing, it's very clear how much this impacted you, regardless of whether or not it was good, bad, or otherwise. Um, and I think part of that is just the outpouring of support you got, not only from family and friends, but also from the nursing staff that you had. And I think that can't go unstated, especially considering the times we've gone through where it feels like we're so divisive and so, at odds with each other for whatever reason. And it's like, nope, you throw one common cause together and look what happened. Like just at your small microcosm.
Yes. And that's another thing was I've always been in the legal industry. And I never really knew much about the health field.
Mhm.
And so coming in, not knowing, not having that information on what somebody in that field goes through every day and what their day to day looks like, I realized it really gave me a profound sense of hope.
Mhm.
And because I saw the camaraderie, I saw the compassion. I mean, I, I don't know in my every single day if I treat people with that level of compassion every day. There's no way. And so to be that person, to be the person who needed that and to be given it from somebody I didn't know, I never had a conversation with, I've never done, they can't gain anything from me. I mean, yeah, they get their paycheck, but no, they put
This is a
their
different level of effort,
a
right?
different level of dedication and love. Different, really, it's a sharing of, it's a human experience, right? It's a sharing of love. And yeah, like I said before, I'm indebted to those people. Everybody, I can confidently say that my team there, they went home and they would come and say, I went to bed and I came up with a new idea and this is what we're going to do today. And I was like, you stayed up thinking about me? And what? Like,
Right.
and you know what was also really serendipitous was the fact that, so I had a support staff of a lot, but my main support staff, which was my occupational therapist, my physical therapist, and my speech path. I also had a psych therapist because I was going through some stuff. But my support staff, minus the therapist, was all 27 years old. We were all like 27.
Wow.
And so I think part of what they do on their day to day is already so influential. But I think maybe they saw a little bit of themselves in me because they were like, hey, this could happen to anyone. This could happen to anybody at any moment. And there's not much they can do to prevent it. And so they were extremely dedicated to seeing me walk out of there, seeing me smile again, and figuring out alternative ways to get that done. I mean, my face, the speech pathologist, Jack, he's awesome. He did these electrodes that he put on my face that would measure my output. And so we would work every day doing like different movements and seeing what would work and measuring the progress. And so, a lot of people that have Guillain-Barré hit their face do not get any, if they do get some back, it's very little. So yeah, I had a really great support staff that was dedicated to my progress.
Yeah. I mean, it's very clear just hearing even these small stories about the different people that you remember, even just the smallest thing. And, I think it can't be understated. Just, at least for me, it's like when I think about it, it's like if I was 27 and that was like, going through something like seeing it and then being in some sense responsible for the outcome. I don't think I could just, turn off my brain and be like, well, that's just, my day job. See you later. Bye. Like totally different context to put in perspective. And then just for you, like you said, you don't sweat the small stuff, but like, has this shifted like what you like expect out of life, right? Like the happiness, fulfillment, or success, like how you define those things or what that looks like? Because I'm sure I can only imagine what the shift like that has led to.
It's an incredibly loaded question that I think could spun a lot of podcasts. But yes, the answer is yes. So I've always been a relatively philosophical person. And so what I've wanted out of life, even from a little girl, was always to have a meaningful life filled with joy, filled with fulfillment, filled with accomplishment, me making a difference in the lives of others, that sort of thing. But, at the time, there was nothing big enough to make a pivotal moment of why that it was important, right? What my legacy was going to be. Because when you're faced with, writing your will at 27 years old in a hospital bed, you start to think very quickly about, did I live my legacy? Did I leave something behind that I'd be proud of? Did I push society forward? Did I change or influence people that I loved? Did I give enough love? Did I do enough? And so when you're faced with that kind of time in life, I think it puts a lot in perspective. And so, yeah, it changed everything. It changed what my legacy and what my mission statement was.
And I mean, you can't just leave it at what your mission statement was. Do you,
yeah.
do you remember,
sorry. Yeah.
And it's okay. Did you remember what it was before and then how you kind of revised it or updated that?
So before, I have to really sit on this one about what my mission statement sort of was before, because I guess I didn't think about it as much as I did in that moment. And all I really was trying to do was to become, quote unquote, as successful as I could have been, to obtain all the knowledge and to do things that were fun and meaningful. But I didn't really sit down and go, okay, how do I make what I want out of life happen until then? And so really, I think after that, I wanted to become a pillar for people
Hmm.
that no matter your upbringing, no matter what circumstances you come across or downfalls you have, you could defy the odds and you could become resilient enough to overcome any adversity if you do the work and if you train your mindset to be in a good place. And so really I want to be a pillar for people, but I also want to help people cultivate a meaningful life and what that means and what it means to bring inherent value in your life. Because in that hospital bed, I recognize that it is just the small stuff. It is just being grateful. It is shifting your mindset and having good people around you, being in an environment that grows you. And so I think that's, really just taking my experience and using it as a tool for other people to be able to achieve whatever they want to achieve.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you're on the right track, and it's really cool to see. I mean, I think the fact that you couldn't really state exactly what your mission statement would have been is really telling to most people. I mean, it's not to point fingers and say you didn't think about it enough. It's just that, let's be honest, like when you're in your 20s or even younger or even a little bit older than that, like you just don't really, it's kind of back of your mind. You're like, oh well, I'll get to it eventually, right? Like you just every day, and you're like, I'm working toward whatever that thing is. And
Yeah.
it's like you just don't really have a reason to get super specific about it, because why? Like you don't have a why, because there isn't, like, that end of the road feels so far away that it doesn't feel like it is necessarily needed to be specific, because there's a good chance you'll go to sleep today and you'll wake up tomorrow, until you realize that that is truly not the case.
Yeah. Yeah. It puts a lot in perspective very quickly.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I think we don't spend a lot of time thinking about as a culture. And I'm sure you could elaborate on this, but what do you think about, for either, I would say people think saying just death is weird, but I'll word it in a different way. But like the shortness of life, because it's like every day is a chance for you to change or grow or align yourself whatever you find meaningful. But I think we contort ourselves either thinking that death is something that's far off, or we confuse the things that we find meaningful saying that it's not something valuable.
So are you asking what my opinion is on death
Yeah,
or
either one of those. It doesn't
um
matter whichever one you want to take. Like,
and I hope I answer this the way you're asking it, but I think oftentimes we as humans view ourselves as indestructible, that we're not just part of nature. And so we plan the next day, we plan the next month, until we're faced with something where you can't plan the next day and you can't plan the next month because it's in question, or you can't plan every single thing. And so, I actually had a hard time with a timeline
hmm,
in the hospital and after, because I got so used to planning by the day. And when I got out, it became extremely overwhelming to me that people were planning by the month.
yeah,
And, and so it would overwhelm me when somebody go, hey, do you want to go on a trip in June? Do you want to go on a trip and I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't know. I might die tomorrow. No, I'm just kidding. But, but seriously, so
no, yeah,
time is a warp for people. And with that being said, I don't think it's natural for people to live like they're dying tomorrow. It's not realistic. That's just not how society is created. And inevitably, we're going to go back to planning by the month, just like I
hmm,
did. I think that we should take a little bit, though. And if you read all of the nonfiction self-help books, it's to embrace gratitude and to live in the moment and do these certain things. but they're important, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's what helps create that we're living a life of meaning. And that when we're faced with something where death is in question, you have the reaction like I did in the hospital bed when I had, blood coming out of my neck from this surgery. I went, well, I had a lot of really great experiences, and I think I showed people that I love them, and I'd really like to hug my dog one last time. And that's it. And I was okay with it. I was totally okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, the goal of anyone, right? Is to get to something like that moment and go, I lived a good life. Yeah, I wasn't satisfied. There's a lot of things that I want to do. I want to see more. I want to do more. I wanted to accomplish more. But
Mm-hmm.
still getting to a moment like that and going, it's okay. And so
Mm-hmm.
death is a very taboo topic. I think there's a lot of fear circulated around it. But if you're living in such a way where it's not cultivating that fear and giving more into that fear, I think we end up living as better people
Mm-hmm.
by living with that in mind.
Yeah. The reason I bring that up is that there's like Sam Harris did this talk about it's something around the present, and I'm going to paraphrase this badly, but he basically says that we sacrifice our lives either planning for tomorrow or whatever the next thing you have to accomplish is, right? Like most of us live by our to-do list. Or if you're not living by your to-do list, you're thinking about the thing that you may have made a mistake on, prior to that. So you're living in your past. And so we sacrifice our present for things that either already happened you can't change, or things that will happen that you can't change. And I think that's really why I bring that up, because I think we need to do better at kind of stepping out of the to-do list, because like you said, there's always going to be things you want to do or things you could do, right?
Yeah.
And no matter how, like, you could live to 200 or whatever with modern modern science allows for. But even if we increase the runway, there's going to be a point where you're just not going to be able to accomplish all the things you hoped to accomplish. Because that's just, I mean, I think it's human nature, right? Like there's always going to be a way to want to do more if your body or mind allows for it. And I think realizing that, saying that there is going to be a point where you're like, yeah, I think I've done it. And maybe there will be for some people. Like if we live long enough, this is totally sci-fi, but if you ever live long enough, there's probably going to be a point where some people are just like, yeah, I think I've been there, done that. I've done everything I wanted.
Let me go.
I'll go, I'll bow out and like let someone else take it from here. But, in the current reality, it's, yeah, of course we don't have enough time. But I think that's kind of maybe magic is the wrong word, but that's what I wanted to go with there.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I actually, and it, along with Sam Harris's sentiments, right? I had this mentor, and we were, a while back. This is actually when I was going through my yoga certification.
mhm.
He said, can you, each of you, think of the best time of your life? And I'll give you a few moments, but think of the best time of your life. And I was like, okay, I don't know if I had it yet. I'm going, just going through all these things.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, do you have it? And we're like, yeah. And he said, okay, do you know why it was the best time of your life? And I'm like, well, I was traveling. I was like active and cool. I don't know. I think all these things. And he goes,
Yeah.
it's none of those reasons. It's because you were the most present
Hmm.
in those moments. There was nothing else. You weren't in the future. You weren't in the past. You were in that moment, savoring it. And that's why it was the best time of your life. And so, and it's interesting because that was right before my illness. And now I identify with GBS as one of the best times in my life. And ironically enough, I had to be extremely present every single.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be on boats in Italy, right? It's just that you have to have this appreciation for what's going on around you, and you have to be savoring this moment for everything that it is. So, I mean, that one really stuck with me, especially because of the time frame that it was.
Yeah.
I
It makes sense, right? Like if you think about it, like you could even say like just kind of playing devil advocate though, like you could go to do the boats in Italy or some other, mystical, magical place, but you could not remember a second of it because there's nothing that punctuates that period of time where you're, locked into the moment. Like you could, not to say alcohol is horrible, but like you could just be, a drunken binge for the time you're in a place like that and you wouldn't remember anything. Again, that's not to say that's the wrong way to do it, but or attach a value sentiment to it, but it's just given the context of what you did there because you're just not going to remember just out of the chemical response alcohol does to the brain and memory. Like you're just not priming yourself for being able to create those lasting memories for things. And I think that's why I really harp on these kinds of things a lot because it's there's a Soren Kierkegaard quote is life must be lived forward, but remembered in reverse. Or I'm paraphrasing that horribly, but basically, we live life and then we have to reflect on the course of our life after the fact, and that is part of the reason why I really wanted to have this conversation because I think experiences like yours are important. And even though someone hasn't gone through that, or a very small minority of people goes through what you experience, at least specifically with GBS, there's still wisdom in the way you talk about it. And it's because you can talk about it that's not, in these fluffy terms, like you said, where it's like not everything is sunshine and rainbows all the time, right? Like it's still clearly a like horrible time, but it's still created a fertile ground from which you can pull lessons from, right? And I'm sure you're still learning. Like I'm sure you wake up every so often or like have a thought that just hits you and you're like, whoa, why did like that?
Yeah. No, and it's good to talk about it, especially like what you're saying, like living life in reverse, right? Because I forget a lot. It was only 2 years ago. This is going to be the 2-year anniversary. I think you're going to post it today. So, but I remember I actually just recently was in the gym and I was training and there was this bodybuilder. She was so impressive and physically. And I can't remember how we began conversation. We were both lifting, doing shoulders and said, oh yeah, recovering from an injury. It's tough. I said, oh yeah, I know. It's actually, I'm myself am recovering. She's like, oh, from what? And I was like, oh, GBS. What's that? I was paralyzed. She's like, wait, what? But I was like, oh yeah, I guess that is a big deal that I'm doing what I'm doing. I mean, it just so a year after, on my year GBS anniversary, we did a Spartan. And so I forget just how that, like I said, it's a time warp, right? I was going by the day, but it just doesn't feel like there's oftentimes I forget. I'm not talking in depth to people. I forget it even happened some days because I'm just in the grind of the day to day. And like you said, going back, just taking a couple steps back of what people getting, not being in the moment. I think even more prominently today, even something that's as simple as distraction on your phone, where is taking people from living a life being present. And so even just going on a trip and spending a majority of the time with your handheld device prevents you from actually living some of the best times of your life. But yeah, I just having those 2 comments on it, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're right about saying, just kind of being offhand about being paralyzed, talking to a bodybuilder, like, oh yeah, we're getting through injuries. And then it's like, wait, different scale to degree.
Like I pulled a muscle. You did what?
Yeah. I mean, but to also comment on that, the fact that you did a Spartan just a year after is insane. Like that is, the human body is a crazy thing, right? To even think about that. I mean, you weren't in like the hospital for very long, so the muscle atrophy wasn't probably that horrible, but you probably...
It was 30 pounds of muscle atrophy.
Oh my God, that's way faster. I would not have guessed that
30
in only
pounds, you
100
lose
days.
it so fast.
No kidding. That's wild.
30 pounds of muscle atrophy. I was like, oh, I'm losing weight. Wow. You're like, yeah, no, that's muscle.
You're like, yeah, you're not walking around anymore. So your body's like, oh, get rid of this metabolically expensive.
It would have been 30 pounds combined. Yeah, it would have been 30 pounds combined. Probably but somewhere, but it was a lot of muscle.
I mean, that makes sense though. But yeah, I wasn't. But so even it's still like that's even more incredible given that context, because you effectively have to regain or retrain your level of endurance if your body's like, oh wait, we don't need to use this anymore. It to me it's one of these things that I think we don't think about too often, because in modern times, especially like you're saying with phones and things like that, like the distraction is so prevalent. And because it's not even just distraction, but it's telling people like how to live, or we do these, because we had this side conversation about like self-help stuff. And one of it was like, we do all of this stuff, especially because of how information presented on the internet. It's all like the hacky stuff, like do these 5 things and you'll, whatever it is, pick a category. And those are fine and well and good, but what it doesn't do well, at least in my opinion, and I think you agree to some degree, and I'm curious where you want to take it, but it doesn't give people like more depth. Like, hey, do these 5 things just says, okay, well, that's cool, but like how or why or where do I implement it in my day, right? Like if you're trying to like work out, like the easier one, or change your diet, like you can give people the top 5 things to change, but you don't give people the habit or the routine to be like, well, why am I changing that? Or how do I implement that into my life so that it fits instead of, adds friction? So I'm just curious where you want to take that, because I think you do have a lot of really good ways to rethink of like how to rebuild a habit to like live better.
Yeah. So that's another thing that I took out of GBS, obviously, it was just how focused I had to be able to get to a normal, my destination at the time was living a normal life that I enjoyed, and analyzing how to do that, what kind of environments I should be putting myself in, what kind of people should I be surrounding myself by, what kind of regimen should I do, what kind of practice should I continue daily, what kind of mindset should I have. All of those things that these, like what you said, these self-help books talk about, but they don't drive home. I mean, it's usually to achieve something, it's to gain monetary gain or physical gain or become the best shape of their life. But really all those things don't matter until, like I said, like we talked about before, when you're getting to that, and, at 27 years old saying, where would you like your stuff to go if something bad happens in this surgery? I don't care about my little baby 4-pack or the money that I had, And so those self-help books, they don't hit the home run, right? Because they're not talking about a legacy, and they're not talking about a big why for yourself so that you could feel impactful at the end of your life, or in general. And so, I think I sort of lost my train here, but I think when it comes to expressing sort of ways in which you should live, another thing that they kind of they miss in those aspects is, somebody who had interviewed previously had mentioned Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is essentially, for people that don't know, it's a pyramid that talks about how to become, you can't just talk about you being at the top of your best self, right? So it has a pyramid it goes from red to orange to yellow to green to blue. And blue would be your best self. And red is the very basic necessities. So it's food, shelter, air, water. Do you have those things? Great. You're not in a red zone, right? Because you're not looking for your next meal. You're not homeless. You're not, in survival mode.
Yep.
You're just survival mode is you can't think about becoming your best self. So you reading a self-help book isn't going to do anything for you. You can't afford it. You can't. Your mental state isn't where it should be. Then it goes to the yellow. Do you have security? Do you have employment? Do you have support? Okay, great. That's, but let's say you are struggling with employment or where you're, going to get a continual paycheck. Then you're kind of floating in that yellow zone. Then it goes up to sense of belonging. Do you have a great people that you feel included in? Do you feel loved? Do you feel like you're engaging in hobbies, that you are getting a continuous paycheck? You are, so you're leveling up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of self-help books, they start right there. Like as if everybody could do these 4 things and they're going to reach success. And so some people can't start from there.
Right.
And so for me, it's really about shaping your mind frame and starting out there where you can look at all the things stacked against you and say, I'm not going to be a victim to these things. I'm not going to carry that mindset. Yeah, sure. These are factors. These are things that I have against me that are working in my favor. That does not mean that I can't do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I get there? Even if I have to start small, how do I get there and create for a meaningful life? Create for cultivating relationships around me that are in alignment with my values and with what I want to accomplish, which is your legacy, and thinking about it in that way. So I think I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. There's no right answer. There will be no test. You've mentioned legacy a couple times now throughout this entire conversation, and I think if there's any way to really wrap up this really round 1 of a conversation, because there's many, many, many more questions we could tackle or stories we could talk about, but we're already well over an hour mark, and I want to be respectful of your time. But what is legacy to you? What does it mean? And why is that seem to be so important for like your frameworks that you want to, get across to people? Because I think it's something, to be honest, we don't really think about very often.
Very simply put, how do you want to be remembered? And what kind of things do you want to leave behind? And I think if, just like any good story, right? You start writing from the conclusion. And so, I think if more people thought about what their conclusion is, then they would live very differently, very, very meaningfully, very impactfully. And as cliche as it sounds, the world will become a better place because of it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And normally I would end this conversation with, I like to ask, what is your advice to a smart, driven person or someone who is looking to pivot in their life? But I think we might have just covered
all of it. All of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we might have just covered that even just with that last question. So, I'll refrain from this one. Other than that, is there any other thoughts that come to mind? Maybe things that we haven't touched, or messages to anyone who might be listening who may have been part of your recovery that you just want to say as we wrap this one up?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I've said it a lot, but I'm great. I'm very grateful for the people, my people, my circle of influence. My mom for taking a leave of absence and coming out to caretake for me. My family for stepping up where others couldn't step in, and all of the staff that had a very passionate sense of focus for me to be better. I'm so grateful for everybody. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for the people around me. I couldn't have done this by myself. I couldn't have done this with just a mindset and a willpower, right? So I'm grateful for that. Messages. I really think that, not to sweat the small stuff and to not think of your of the odds stacked against you being completely dictating your future.
Mm-hmm.
That you can do whatever you put your mind to, basically.
Yeah. And so with that, where can people connect with you or follow along with your journey on the internet? If you have a website or
Yeah.
Instagram, whatever the best place is.
I actually got my Instagram deleted not too long ago on accident. So, but you can, I do have a writing account, called Corner of Comfort Co. And so you could follow me on there. And, yeah, that's probably the one place.
I'll put the Instagram in the show notes for people who are interested to follow along or say hey or just reach out for whatever reason. But that is, I think this is the best place to leave it for this round one. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground, and as always, we covered like a tiny fraction of what.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this conversation. Like I said, I'm not able to talk about it in this depth-filled way. So, it's a really cool podcast. You're doing some cool things yourself, and I'm honored to be on it.
Well, I appreciate that. And like I said, always room for round 2 or more down the road. I'm sure we'll have many more ideas that'll come up as we go on, and we'll take it from there. I appreciate you coming on, and great to have all of the wisdom that you've gained.
Yeah, me too.
Hello, everyone, and thank you all for getting to the end of the podcast. And I thank you all for not only making it through the episode, but to hearing me here again at the end. If you enjoyed the podcast that much, please consider liking, subscribing, or leaving a comment on what your favorite part was, or if there's anything else we should explore related to what we covered here. Anything that sticks out, I really would like to know. And if there's feedback I can receive, I would also love to know. And as a final note, if you really enjoy what we do here, you can also subscribe to us. You can go to our Patreon, Feeding Curiosity, patreon.com/feedingcuriosity, or you can head over to our Spotify podcasters or anchor.fm and support us there. So anyways, thank you all for watching and or listening once again, and I will see you all in the next episode.